Welcome everyone to Not That Media. My name is John, and in today's video I want to spend some time going over the merchandise that I purchased during my recent short break. I'd like to give you a little bit more information in terms of our experience, the goods and the negatives. And I also want to spend a bit more time going over the 1-star review and unpleasant experience I had at the Thorpe Park cabins. I have received a response from Thorpe Park directly in relation to not only my Google complaint review, but also a direct complaint, because I don't believe if you have a negative experience that if you're going to shout about it on social medias and reviewing networks, you should actually give an opportunity for the organisation to respond in their own right. And indeed they have. I don't want to give you too much of a spoiler up front, but I have to say that it was somewhat of a disappointing response, but I'm going to break that down and comment on that because I do have thoughts and opinions on that, some good, some negative, but we'll see what happens. So come along with me as I wrap up my recent stay of May 2024 at Thorpe Park. If this is my first video that you're watching, I do recommend that you do check out my Thorpe Park day video and my Thorpe Park hotel experience video, because I do think it's important that context is given to the nature of the complaint response I'm about to give. I'm not going to go over everything. I think one of the problems that I'm having in my infancy of YouTube is making my videos so long. So I don't want to rehash things. There's a 43-minute video. I think it's off the cuff, it's honest, it's open, it is not hate-filled, it is not designed to be negative for the sake of negativity. Unfortunately, Joanne and I had quite an unpleasant experience, and some of the comments have reciprocated that experience, others have denied that experience. And one of the things that I love about social media and following different channels and different vloggers is everybody has a different experience. Ironically, a lot of people commented on about what a terrible time they had at the Alton Towers Hotel. Me and Joe had a great time at the Alton Towers Hotel. I also want to just say that I understand that noise is a factor of staying at a theme park hotel. I am not one of these people who expects absolute silence when I'm staying at, frankly, a lower tier hotel. It is part of it. The nature of my complaint and my frustration didn't necessarily come from people being loud next door. It came from what I consider to be inadequate facilities. And the more I think about it and the more I look into it, there were things I didn't even cover in my video, such as, for example, little warning signs such as you can't drink the water in the room. You have to drink bottled water. There is no Wi-Fi information whatsoever in that room. And again, you don't think about these things in the moment, but when you're actually thinking, well, what if I'd wanted to upload or stream something? Couldn't find anything. There was no Wi-Fi information. It certainly was not provided to us at check-in. It was not something we were told about. That's another little thing that I didn't even hear about. So the more I think about it, unfortunately, there are more cons to my experience with the Thorpe Park Shark cabins. That's not to say Thorpe Park was a bad experience. It was not. The truth of the matter is, and when me and Joe discussed it afterwards, is that if we had been there for one day, if I had driven there, been in the park from open to close and driven home, it would have perhaps been a spectacularly good day and we would have gone home really happy and really impressed. I'm going to do things a little bit differently with this video in terms of merchandise. I'm not going to have things in my hand and try and get them into focus and wave them about. I'll have them appear here. They'll be from my own photos and video if I feel it's necessary. I didn't buy a tremendous amount from this trip. It wasn't because I wanted to, be cheap or anything like that. There wasn't a tremendous amount of things that actually jumped out to me. Again, that's not a negative, but I went there with the idea of hopefully getting some Walking Dead merchandise, some Saw merchandise, and anything to do with the Ghost Train if it stood out. Now, the Walking Dead merchandise, as I mentioned in my video, I could not find anywhere in the park. I looked round, couldn't see anything. With Saw, I have to admit, I only bought one thing, which is what I'm wearing now, and again it'll probably appear here, which was a normal hoodie. This was £60 before discount. It is a grey with the red trim and Saw the Ride, the logo here. It's simple and it's easy. The reason I wanted this was purely because of all the Saw merchandise, and there was a fair bit. There were some cool socks, there was some cool shirts and t-shirts and Billy merchandise, Billy resin models and things like that. There was a lot I could have probably bought. But this stood out to me simply because of the simplicity, and the colour scheme reminded me very much of Jigsaw's apprentice robes that he wears in the films. He normally wears the kind of blacky grey kind of robe with the red trim. So I felt that this actually evoked a little bit more of the movies than some of the other merchandise did. So I really liked this. £60. They had half a dozen there, so this was the only thing I bought from Saw the Ride. Although I did not ride Saw the Ride, I wanted to pick up something just purely because you never know with these kind of things. The merchandise might be here one day, gone the next. They had some really cool stuff, bottle openers, magnets, etc. But I didn't want to go buying those kind of things without actually riding the ride. I've already broken the rule by showing you that I bought this jumper, but I do in my head have this kind of little odd rule which I set for myself, which is to only buy merchandise for rides that I have ridden. Moving away from Saw, the only other thing I bought more than one item for was Ghost Train. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about Ghost Train, it's not a spoiler video, and indeed in my video I tried to be informative and non-committal with the detail, because I do think as an experience, I don't want to describe it as a ride because a ride might be misleading. You know, when you say a ride, I think Stealth, I think Nemesis. Ghost Train is an immersive experience. It is a ride, really. You know, there are moving elements and all that kind of stuff, but it reminded me, as I said in the video, more akin to Halloween Horror Nights or the Alton Dungeon, for example. It had that kind of a feeling. Don't get me wrong, Ghost Train was better than the Alton Dungeon, and that's not to disrespect the dungeon, because I thought that was a really good experience as well. So they didn't have a tremendous amount of merchandise for Ghost Train. The first thing I picked up was a lanyard, purely because I just quite like the look of it. So there was lots of lanyards, lots of different rides had lanyards, but it looks a little simpler. It was black, it had the designs, it had the logo. It's one of those that if you wore it to work or in the office, it's not garish enough to stand out, but it is a conversation starter if people do notice it. So that was £4.50 before discount. The other thing that I purchased was a magnet. Now again, they had many different magnets for many different rides, but Ghost Train stood out to us as kind of every time we go to one of these kind of theme parks or experiences, we always like to get a magnet to commemorate it in some way. So this time it went to a kind of lenticular affected Ghost Train badge. It was really cool. It evoked it. There was a lot of different merchandise which related to Ghost Train, but it was kind of faux train service kind of stuff, so like a train cup or a t-shirt. And whilst I'm a big fan of those kind of I don't know quite what the word is. I don't want to say fake, but it kind of evokes that. Yeah, you would think it was a train cup or a train t-shirt or a member of staff's like shirt kind of thing. I do like those things, but I wasn't a big fan of the white and the blue and the grey tones of the Ghost Train merchandise outside of anything with the main logo. So we went for that, went for the Ghost Train magnet, and I believe that was £6 before discount. The third and final item I purchased from the Ghost Train was quite simply a pin, and it said Believer. Again, they had the Ghost Train logo. It was cool. It evoked Ghostbusters. It has to be said. It is even the split word Ghostbusters in the same kind of font as well, I believe. But I quite liked this Believer. I think it's one of those that if you saw it on a lapel or on a bag, unless you know kind of a situation. So again, it evokes conversation. It's not quite as simple as, oh, it's a Ghost Train pin. Believer is very important to the experience. If you know what I'm talking about, obviously then you know what it is to be a believer within the confines of the experience. I believe this one, I'm just trying to have a quick look now over my notes. This one was also £6. I believe all the pins were £6, it has to be said. So we got the lanyard, the magnet, and the Believer pin from Ghost Train. 3 really cool items. I was very impressed. I could have bought more, I should say, but again, I was trying to rein it in this time, and it has to be said, when I was buying things, I wasn't necessarily in the most positive of mindsets, so I didn't particularly want to spend a lot of money to have memories of the kind of mixed experience that I received. The other pin we purchase, I should say, we didn't receive anything, we bought it, which, again, it was for fun as much as it was for nostalgia, even though we are not nostalgic to Thorpe Park. I've never been to it. I don't believe Joe's ever been to it. But I did buy the pin for Mr. Monkey's Banana Boat for a couple of reasons. We went on that ride, and I believe it might even be one of the oldest rides there, because when we saw the pin, it had a commemorative 30th anniversary piece to it, which rotated like the ride, or I should say swayed like the ride. So I bought it purely because I thought it was just quite a funny thing to have as a memory. We went on it, we expected nothing. It was all right, is what I would say. If you're a fan of pirate ships, and I think Alton Towers, it's called Blade now, but if you're a fan of the old-fashioned pirate ships, that's all this ride was. It was silly. It's clearly for the kids and the family. We went on. We laughed our heads off. We got off. I saw the pin, and I thought, you know what? From my Disney experience, I have found that sometimes rides like that don't tend to get a lot of merchandise, and then before you know it, it's been closed and that merchandise is lost forever. Indeed, things like Captain EO and all those kind of old rides that, you know, have a fan favourite quality to them, but they're normally one of the first things to get out when it's time to put in something new. I can see Mr. Monkey's Banana Boat being one of those rides that if they needed the space, they'd get rid of it, to be perfectly honest. So we had such a laugh on it. I just wanted to buy that, to be perfectly honest. I wasn't expecting it to. It's not something I covered majorly on the video, and that was on purpose. It was there for a bit of a gag, because when you've seen one, you've seen them all. That one was £6 as well. The last section, which, as I said, it wasn't going to be much this time round, I was really pleased to get my hands on, because it's something that I hadn't really considered looking for, or I'm not even sure it was meant to be out, to be perfectly honest, because there was 4 of these out, and when we went back the next day, they were all gone. Now, either all 4 got bought in an afternoon, which is unlikely because it was nearly park closure when I purchased this, or it's one of those things that was not meant to be out and was probably meant to be behind the counter. I don't know. I didn't ask. I didn't even think about it until the next day when I came back to discover they had gone, and there wasn't even space for these. So earlier in the year, after the first Alton Towers trip that Joanna and I went on, and when I decided that actually, because my content will cover, you know, physical media, horror, the Hooniverse, all that kind of stuff is coming and has started. But when Joe and I decided to maybe do a little bit more theme park content after such a positive experience at Alton Towers, I crunched the numbers and chose to invest in Merlin annual passes. And there will be videos about that coming up. I've got some very short-term video ideas, and I've got a couple of long-term video ideas, to find out if these things are actually worth it, it has to be said. So more on that later. But I was really pleased just to see a pass holder magnet. It's nice and simple. It was just the logo. It had the silver edge with the pass holder logo in the middle. I saw it. I instantly wanted it. So if you're a Merlin pass holder, I don't know if this is something that should have been freely available to take to the counter and buy. You might find if you go, you can't find them, but ask behind the counter. So because I had a Merlin annual pass, I was able to buy this magnet, and it's one of those situations where I've never been a pass holder in any kind of way. I've always been envious of other YouTubers, particularly obviously theme park vloggers, when they're always talking about their Disney keys and their annual passes. I never thought I would be one of those people, but when we crunched the numbers, when we had a look at content, it got to a stage where it's like, you know what, actually this thing might actually be worth investing in. And I don't want to spoil videos for the future. I certainly think it has been, but more on that later. So this was a really cool little pass magnet, I should say. It only cost £3, which really impressed me. I'm always looking for a deal, and I do believe if I didn't get my discount on it, it was cheap enough that the discount didn't matter. Most magnets were £6, £4.50 to £6. This was £3, this thing. It was just a cool little, even if I don't remain a pass holder in the future, it's just a cool thing I can stick on the fridge, and I can see that, and you know, in the future I can look at it and go, great, or again, it's a conversation starter when people come round. So that was it really from a merchandise perspective. up, which I only found out about, it has to be said, via a Facebook group. This information was not in my Merlin annual pass box, is that if you go to guest services in the case of Thorpe Park and you are a Merlin annual pass holder, you can pick up, and this is totally free, a Merlin annual passport. It's just a bit of fun. There's no reason behind it other than for memories. Just ask for it and they will give it to you. They will stamp it. I'm sure there's a picture, but the lady, when she did it, she had the smallest stamp for Thorpe Park I have ever seen. This thing, it looks like a blue line, but it doesn't matter. But the idea is it's just a passport. It's got all the different locations that you can go to. Take it with you, take it to the appropriate store, get it stamped, and then you'll be able to say, okay, in 2024, I went to all these places. So if you are a Merlin pass holder who likes the challenge of going to everything, here is an opportunity for you just to have that little piece of memorabilia to say, okay, great, I was there. It costs nothing but your time to seek out guest services and ask them to stamp your book. It's got some challenges in it, it's got some questions in it, it pushes you to look at different things and to consider the area you are in differently. It's just a bit of fun is what I would say. So yeah, Merlin annual passport, do go and pick that up at guest services. In terms of food in the park, we didn't buy a tremendous amount, and that was on purpose. We did stop at a donut shop which was next to Stealth and purchased donuts. I think Joe purchased a raisin one and I bought a kind of Neapolitan frosted donut. You can get your annual pass on those and they were really delicious. They were about £3 to £4 each, I think, before discount, or maybe £4 to £5 before discount, it should be said. It was located, it looked like an old school kind of festival caravan with an open side with all these donuts. It was there all day, both days. It's obviously a standard fixture of the park. It was right next to Stealth. I mean, how smart it is to have those kind of donuts. These were big donuts as well. Next to a ride like Stealth, I'm not sure, but I do recommend picking those up. In terms of eating during the day, it has to be said, and I believe I mentioned this in the video, that although there is a lot of park food, there are churros, there are popcorn, there's all those kind of bits and pieces. Something that, if you're looking for something quick and fast, which was quite convenient, is there is a KFC and there is a Burger King in the park. So we did stop at the KFC at lunchtime. We did order just standard popcorn, chicken and chips with a bottle of water. It has to be said though that they put something odd on the chips, is what I was saying. I'm not quite sure what it was. Maybe some kind of herb. Well, it was some kind of herb. It was clearly some kind of like peppered herb. I'd never seen that in a KFC before. The prices were comparable. I haven't got the information for the prices because it was KFC. For two people, it was less than £20, is what I would say. You cannot get annual pass discounts on KFC and Burger King in the park. So if you have kids, and I used to be one of them, who are fussy eaters, who when they go to a strange place or a new place, they don't want to really try anything different. They just want their KFC or their burger, something they're comfortable getting. You can actually get that, which was quite a convenience because sometimes, particularly when you're in parks, you don't want to be spending a long time eating into your day, because the park was open from 10 till 5, which was an hour longer than Alton Towers, which was great. But it's one of those that if you give up an hour to an hour and a half to get a meal, that's a big chunk of your day. And again, similar to Alton Towers, we did bring our own snacks. We did have breakfast in the dome, as I've covered obviously in my other vlog, but we did also have a meal in there in the evening. It was burger and chips. I had some spicy chicken pieces, and I believe Joe had some mozzarella sticks. I think I did take some photos, so I'm sure they'll pop up now. After discount, it came to about £43. So my argument, it's not even an argument, my opinion of burger and chips, expensive burger and chips in theme parks does continue. It was one of the things that I was not disappointed, but it was one of the points that I raised about Alton Towers. I think it's only appropriate to raise it here at Thorpe Park. It was good quality. The restaurant was really good. It was quick. We got there just after 5 o'clock, so the park was formally closed. Everyone was being cleared out, but obviously by staying in the cabins, it enabled us to stay in that area, so we were able to eat there. The staff were really nice and courteous. Like I said the next morning at the breakfast, I can't fault any member of staff in that place, despite the issues I had with the hotel. The Dome restaurant, which is name I have forgotten, which I'm sure is flashing up on the screen. I make notes and do research, get everything else out ready, and I then forget the one restaurant that we actually went to, the name of it. They were nothing but polite, nothing but helpful, really friendly staff. So if you're going to Thorpe Park, I strongly recommend that you do eat in the restaurant within the Dome, because it was good. Before I move on, one thing I would recommend, just a little tip or a hack here for you, is if you are intending to purchase a lot of things, bring your own bags. Be it a tote bag or a plastic bag or whatever it is, a backpack, etc., because they do not sell plastic carrier bags in the park. You have to purchase a tote bag. So like with the 13 at Alton Towers, I needed to buy a tote bag to hold my jumper because I didn't want to put it inside my drawstring bag, just in the off chance that it was going to rain and I didn't want it to get ruined. So we did end up purchasing one. It's £2.50. It's just a fairly decent, standard tote bag. It's got Thorpe Park logos and things on it. So again, something to keep, something to use in the future. But if you're going to the park, do actually think about taking bags. Because I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to tote bags, I think tote bags have become the same as plastic bags. I have a bag of tote bags now. I have a tote bag holding a bag of tote bags. So it's just getting a little bit kind of crazy now. So if you get there and you are expecting a carrier bag, they don't have them. It's not a negative. I understand the reasoning behind it, but it is a additional charge of £2.50 if you haven't got the ability to carry the products. Although we didn't buy a lot of merchandise, we had a really good time in the parks. There was loads to see, loads to do. We were there on day one from beginning to end. I have to confess, on day two, due to the experience we had at the hotel, we left after a couple of hours, which is why from a video perspective, there wasn't a tremendous amount of footage or 2 days worth of parks. I made the point on day one to walk around and scout the area out, with the intention of on day two doing a considerable amount of filming. Due to the exhaustion and general feeling of being feeling unpleasant, we filmed what we could, but after about 2 hours, we decided it was probably better to go home. So we enjoyed quite a lot of the rides on day one and on day two. We didn't just stand around doing nothing on day two. We went on rides. So we went on The Swarm, The Walking Dead, Ghost Train, Mr. Monkey's Banana Boat, Nemesis Inferno, Stealth. We did the Sunset Cinema. I'm pretty sure I've missed something else out as well. So I think in all, we did maybe 7-8 rides and experiences, whilst casually walking around the park, whilst taking photos, doing filming. I have to say, highlights of the day was definitely Stealth. Stealth was just a crazy ride. You can see the video in my other ride video, I should say. It's really good. Ghost Train, up there in experience. It was a good park, loads to see, like I keep saying, lots of fun to be had. I just unfortunately had an unpleasant experience on the first night, which resulted in a drastically reduced video content on day two. So I'm glad that people watch it and are enjoying it, and I'm glad with what came out of it. But if we do go back to Thorpe Park, which we will, I'm not going to say I'm never going back to Thorpe Park, because we will. But if we do go back, I will probably spend a lot more time going over a lot of the rides we didn't go on, because although we walked around the park and did 2, 3, 4 laps quite easily, we saw a lot. There was quite a lot closed. Like I said, it was disappointing that the Saw ride was closed. It was not scheduled to be closed on the Wednesday when we went. We knew it was going to be closed on the Tuesday, but then they updated it on the Tuesday night to say the Wednesday it was closed as well. But that's just what happens sometimes with theme parks. You just can't help it. You go, you hope. Sometimes it's closed, sometimes it's not. So we'll go back for that. Obviously, Hyperia is open now, which is a great ride. Looking forward to going on that at some point in the future. But all in all, it was a good experience. I hope you guys have good experiences. And with that, we're now going to move on to arguably what is probably the more interesting part of my video, which is the complaint response and my thoughts on this. So thank you for watching that so far. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. I think only 20% of people viewing my videos are actually subscribed. It'd be really great if you could subscribe. But for now, I'm going to move on to the complaint response that I received from Thorpe Park. It was not my intention to actually raise a formal complaint with Thorpe Park, but after recording the video, which as I say I have put up and is available to watch, I also felt it important to raise a review on Google. Now, the reason I did this was when I was looking through the other Google reviews, and a number of those actually reiterated the same complaint points I did. So I kind of realized that I'm not by myself in this regard. But I noticed that they did get responses with complaint numbers. So I thought, actually, you know what? As somebody who is aspiring to be, I don't want to say an influencer in that kind of way, but I want to be somebody on YouTube, social media, who people may actually seek out information and may look to, find out things and go through different experiences and find out things vicariously by watching my adventures through theme parks and everything else that I'm going to be putting onto this channel. So, having gone to the trouble of filming this, I think, quite polite and hopefully entertaining as well as informative video about my unpleasant experience, I actually thought, you know what? You should put your money where your mouth is and you should raise this with Thorpe Park. So I put a Google review on which was 1 star, which is one of the reasons why I referred to the video as a 1 star in the description. I called it 1 star review because I gave it a 1 star review. So again, being open and transparent, I did this on purpose. So I filled in my experience and what happened in very much the same kind of chronological order I went through over the video. I put it on there and left it and didn't think anything of it. A few hours later, I did actually receive a response via Google, which was, it has to be said, and there's no fault on this because this is what all organisations do, it was a template kind of blanket, oh, we're sorry to hear about that response, but it did come with a unique complaint number, which is what I wanted from raising the complaint. So having now been armed with the complaint number, I made a point to actually, because you can't write everything in the Google review, and last thing people need to be doing is reading Lord of the Rings of Google reviews. So I made a point to go and expand my complaint, go through some of the things that I hadn't thought about after I'd done the video or I hadn't written during the Google review, and actually give the opportunity for Thorpe Park to respond to these things. And one of the main reasons that I've tried to get this video out very quickly, which is why it's a little bit more rough and ready than the other couple of videos have been, is I wanted to make sure that anybody who had been following me was able to actually see my complaint through to the end. Because for me, if you're just going to shout at the sky, nothing's going to come of it. It's just pointless. So we might as well follow the chain. Receive a response. Dear Jonathan, Jonathan is misspelt. Thank you for getting back in touch. I'm picking your case up on behalf of our divisional director and CEO. First and foremost, I would like to apologise that your stay in the shark cabins didn't live up to expectations. We want every single person who steps foot onto our park to have the most amazing time, and I am saddened to hear that this was not the case as a result of both of your overnight stays with us. I only had 1 overnight stay. It was only 1 night. I hope that my email answers any concerns or questions which you may have. That's fine. That's just typical standard complaint response. I have no objection to that whatsoever. Despite the fact it made reference to the fact that I had stayed both nights, when in reality I'd only stayed 1 night. We have security on site throughout the entirety of the day, and they were called to the cabins following the phone call to hotel reception. The team did a patrol of the surrounding area and they did not notice anything out of the ordinary such as loud noises that night. As I'm sure you can appreciate, we can't always control the behaviour of guests, but I appreciate how any form of loud noise may have had a negative impact on your night, and I would like to apologise for that. So, what I would say to this is I was during day 1 of our stay, I went round and recorded at length a hotel overview video, which I have not published and will not be publishing because, as I said, the experience I had resulted in the video that was published. I spent a considerable amount of time walking up and down, standing in the corners, standing in areas to get good spots, to get wide angles, to get as much view, much information as possible for people to take in. And I can tell you, in the time I was out there, no security, no Thorpe Park blazed jackets or no Thorpe Park marked t-shirts. There was not one member of staff walking around at any point. So I don't want to sit here and completely dismiss things, but I can tell you that during the day, and we were there from about 6 o'clock through to 9 o'clock, and I was out, as I say, for a good chunk of that filming, I didn't see a single member of staff once. The people that I did see who were members of staff were in the welcoming booth, or like, you know, the kind of shed area thing. They were three young individuals. They were not security. They were there to check in, check out. So I did not see any security. I understand what they're saying about loud noises. I totally agree. You know, I lived in a flat in a central town for over a decade and a half. It was loud, it was noisy, it was above restaurants, it was below people. I am fully aware of the kind of noise, and there is a very clear difference to me between people making noise through merriment or through, you know, intoxication or whatever it is. But the complaint I really had was the slamming of the metal doors. Slamming those doors every 10 to 15 minutes. If it had just been noise through the wall, to be perfectly honest, I would have turned over, put the pillow over my head and gone to sleep. But the reverberation from those doors, so I'm really sorry, I don't accept that bit. So that was paragraph 1. Your feedback has been reviewed by the hotel management team, and they have confirmed that the aircon in the room which yourself and your partner were staying in was working as intended, and there were no issues on that behalf. I'm sorry, I stand by my complaint. There was hot air coming out of those fans. It was misting the window. We did eventually get it working, so it was cool air, but it was never cold air conditioning. I'm sorry, I do not believe that. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit interesting. The green light, which you were referring to, is indeed there for health and safety purposes. These emergency lights have since been removed from the inside of the room and now function on the outside, which should help with the brightness. Now, there's more about this, because I called their bluff on that, because I did find it a little odd that, okay, one person complains and suddenly they've moved the green lights. The size of each shark cabin is reflective of what is listed on our website. I've attached this below for reference. Now, when I read that statement, the size of each shark cabin is reflective of what is listed on our website, that read to me that there was information on the Thorpe Park website which indicated the size of the rooms. So I used the link that they provided, and it took me to the generic booking website. There is no information at all about the dimensions and the size of those rooms on there whatsoever. So again, I did call out the fact that they said that the shark cabin is reflective of what is listed on our website is actually a bit of a falsity to me, because if you're going to make those claims, you should at the very least explain how big the rooms are. After taking your points into consideration, I would be happy to provide yourself and your partner with a gesture of goodwill which I trust will prove beneficial on a future trip to Thorpe Park. This consists of 3 priority rise passes each, so 6 in total. Each one of our priority rise passes essentially acts as a one-shot fast track ticket, therefore entitling you to the fast track queue so basically the fast track line. I'm not going to re-record that bit. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, I've made it clear that I'm not coming back anytime soon, but that's still something. Those fast passes are not cheap. And I thought, actually, you know what? Hyperia is open. So if I can get them, and maybe in 6 months' time, great, we'll go back and we'll do Hyperia. These priority ride passes can be used for any of our attractions, apart from Hyperia. These 6 passes can be used on any date of your choice up to the end of June 2024. Now, at the time of recording, it is mid to late May 2024. Trips like this are not easy or cheap. They have to be planned in advance for most people. Even though I have a Merlin pass, I still have to plan these things in advance. I still have to pay for these things in advance. I have to consider fuel costs, etc., etc. So, for me, offering me a fast pass, which is only valid for 6 weeks, and will be a hugely busy time because of a new ride being opened, a new ride that I cannot use the fast pass on, to me was frankly insulting. And I called them out on this and said, okay, I'm not happy about that. I do feel that it's somewhat oddly convenient that the green lights have been fixed. I've only got one complaint, and 3 days later they've been fixed, question mark. And frankly, I did say to them, frankly, I feel like you're calling me out as a liar for the noise complaint. So I'm really not happy, and the fast passes are fairly useless to me. I did also point out the fact that, having investigated the comments made about the size of the rooms, that there was nothing on the website to actually make reference to the size of the rooms whatsoever. Having responded to the complaint with some of my dissatisfaction, I did receive a further response, which was the same day, to their credit. So it wasn't a case of I had to wait a week between each email. I did actually get a response from Eleanor and the management team on the same day I responded, and it was as follows. Dear Jonathan, Jonathan is misspelt. Thank you for getting back to me. The link provided in my previous email contains images of the shark cabins but not the actual dimensions. Apologies for any confusion. Now, to me, if you made a point to raise in the first email that the size information, the room scale, etc., is available on the website, and then go to the trouble of providing me with a link, maybe it's me as a manager responding to customer service complaints, but I always feel that you should be empowering the customer with as much information to prove that they're wrong, to be perfectly honest. So I always think if you're going to respond in a complaint, you should be airtight. So the fact that they pointed me to the website to look at the shark cabins, and it was just the generic photographs and no information about the size of the rooms or anything like that, I was a little bit disappointed. But I took that one on the chin as to say, well, fair enough. I thought the response was a little bit weak, but maybe my expectation that I would then go to a website and it would have the dimensions, with the full intention of sharing that information, was the main reason I wanted it, and to discover, actually, look at the photographs. Now, photographs can be manipulated, angles can be taken, wide angle lenses can be used, you can shoot from below, it makes it look taller, makes it look larger. The room pictures on the Thorpe Park website are fairly representative of the room, so I don't want to sit here and pretend like we were being misled, but I did think it was a little bit disappointing that they've made such a point to say the information is available online, aka look at the photographs. In terms of the green emergency light, there were only 6 hotel rooms which had them inside the actual room, with the remaining having them on the outside. I can confirm that these have been since removed following your visit. Now, this kind of... I'm not quite sure how to take this one. Now, the noise was one thing. The banging was another. The cramped room was something. But to be awake in the middle of the night with that green spotlight, and again, the picture will appear because I can't overstate how bright that light was, but the fact that I think I didn't count them, and I did look online, but I couldn't see a listing of it. I'm going to say there's probably 70 to 100 cabins on that site. The fact that 6 of them had these green lights, and they were in the process of changing these lights to be on the outside, to me is a recognition of Thorpe Park that is a known issue. They wouldn't move those lights just for the sake of it. If they were all inside, why would they bother to move them outside? Unless clearly this is a main point of contention from people who stay there. So I'm really pleased that those lights have been moved to the outside. It makes much more sense to see them from the outside. What I would say as well is I felt quite positive to receive that information, because I did receive a few comments. I received no real negativity, no hate, as they like to say, at all. But what I did receive is a few people saying, well, the light never bothered me. I never saw a light. I didn't see a light. And this explains why. That 6 cabins had these green lights on the inside, not the outside. So I was unlucky. And I think that the majority of this trip in terms of the hotel experience has been an unlucky one. So the fact that those lights have been moved to the outside, great. But that just is something now that can be recognised on my video as a little bit of a time capsule, that at one point those lights were on the inside of the room, and Thorpe Park thought that it was acceptable to have lights like that on the inside of the room. With a room so small, it just didn't work. Now, I had this conversation with Joe afterwards because I couldn't quite work it out, because I thought, well, health and safety, health and safety lights would have to be there in every hotel room in theory. So why was this one so different? And it kind of hit me very quickly that, say for example, the Alton Towers Hotel. When you walk into the Alton Towers hotel room, you have a kind of a, I'm not quite sure how you would state it, like an entry space. You have the toilets and the bathroom just to the left, and the bed is round the corner. Now that means, of course, that any health and safety lights that are above you when you walk in are not visible when you're in bed because you're round the corner. The rest of the email, as I'm sure you've seen in the picture, goes on to simply reiterate, would you like the fast passes within 14 days? I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to ask for the fast passes. We will not be going back to Thorpe Park before the end of June. Not because we don't like Thorpe Park, not because we have a problem with it. We're just not going back in the next 6 weeks. Other problems which I would probably call out as well, which I can't remember if I mentioned this. Well, the truth is, we don't need to go into too much detail, but when I go back to the room, I needed to have a shower. The shower, when you use the shower, it operates almost like a sauna. The rooms are so small. So just to go through a few more complaints, sorry, because I am aware that sometimes I jump around. So that was the response I received. I did not feel that the response was taking into account my negative experience. It felt very generic. It felt very copy and paste. It felt very, we're really sorry that you had this problem, but we're not going to do anything about it. I felt somewhat insulted to be offered fast passes that were only valid for 6 weeks, and the only ride I'd want to go on is ironically the one ride I'm not allowed to go on. So while some people might turn their nose and say, well, actually, yeah, that's a really good offer from them, it is if you live around the corner from the park. It is if you go there once a month, twice a month. For me, it's not something that was worth it. I would have rather had nothing than something in this situation. I don't make these complaints because I want everything. I don't want free holidays, like I've already said, but if you're going to make an offer, it should be made based on the problem and the situation. I openly said in my response, we will not be coming back anytime soon. We will come back. So why offer me a fast pass for 6 weeks? Anyway, get off my lawn, soapbox moment over. So that was the main part of the complaint. What I was just saying before I interrupted myself to just say that is when I got back to the room after recording the video, because I didn't do any follow-up because I just didn't want to keep talking about it, and I wanted the park hotel videos to be 2 separate entities, so I wanted to be positive and smile and good on the main video and not make reference to these negative facts, because I think there's a time and a place. That video's got it. It's been done, parked. Let's now talk about all the great stuff in the park. When I got back, I jumped in the shower. Anyway, I recorded the video, got in the shower. It wasn't particularly hot. The shower was great. It was an overhead shower unit. It was fantastic, really strong. Water was really nice and hot. The problem is that as soon as you open the glass door, it in effect turned the whole room into a sauna. So all the heat, because the room was so small and there was so much heat and moisture, the floor was soaking wet, the water had come out into the room. No, it wasn't like a biblical flood in the room or anything, but there was water in the room. So clearly the oh dear, what's the word? The air filter is what I'm going to say. I'll call it the air filter for the purpose of this. The air filter was not working particularly strong in the bathroom. So the water and the hot air was not being expunged as quickly as it probably should do. So what happened is the full mirror in the bathroom was completely soaked. It was completely blurred out. The heat and the moisture then went into the room, which then completely blurred out the mirror. My wife was getting ready. She was putting makeup on. The whole glass, once again, was steamed up, fogged up and steamed up, so it was completely invisible. And I found myself having to rush to get dressed, to get dry and get dressed, to get out of the room, because this kind of sauna wet room effect that was being created as a result of the shower, it was just too much. Now, people might say, well, why didn't you just close the shower door? We did close the shower door, but because it's not a sealed piece of glass, a glass door, it was just coming through and above. So my word of advice to people for that as well is, if you are people who don't particularly like to, feel uncomfortable after you've had the shower, if you don't want that heat coming into the room, I don't know what to suggest, because I can't see a way around that. Certainly Thorpe Park aren't going to do anything about it. But the shower, I think the shower, ironically, was too good for the room it was in. And this is the irony, of course, is that I'm complaining about the fact it's too small. The doors aren't very good. The shower was really good in terms of water pressure and heat. It just engulfed the room with steam and moisture into the air. So word of warning with that, the drinking water situation. Now, personally, I'm never a very big fan of drinking water in hotel rooms, because traditionally the room that, or the sink, I should say, that you are drawing this water from tends to be from the bathroom. So the old wives' tale of always boil your kettle twice before you make a drink or anything else like that, just to make sure, get it clean, etc. When we walked in, there was one bottle of water, one 2 litre bottle of water, which was, oh, okay, great. You see that and you think, oh, that's a nice little complimentary thing, great. You then go into the bathroom, there's a nice big sign that says, do not drink the water. Now that personally for me always puts me a little bit on edge, kind of like, oh, do not drink the water. Which was great. Okay, you're going to give us the water, so you're not expecting me to go out and buy water, but one 1.5 litre bottle of water for 2 people isn't going to go very far. Once you boiled the kettle a couple of times, had a couple of glasses of water, that water's gone. So one of my little niggles was that I had to go out of the room, walk up to the room, the welcome area, ask for more water, walk back again. Again, first world problems, but it's slightly inconvenient. I think the rooms should have 2 or 3 bottles of water. So if you have a particularly large party of people, what I'm saying here is when you're checking in, perhaps ask for a couple of extra bottles of water while you're there, just to save you the aggravation of walking all the way there to turn around to come back. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do subscribe. At the time of recording, my subscription base is about 20% of those viewing, so it'd be really good if we could get it higher than that. The Thorpe Park experience, although a little bit of a mixed bag, did actually help increase my viewership and my subscriptions, so I am grateful to Thorpe Park and the experience I have received. I hope not to have the negative experiences again, but you never know with these kind of things, and I will be truthful and honest and tell you my experiences as and when they happen. In terms of theme parks, I think the next plan is to hit Chessington World of Adventure. They have a hotel, and do a similar 2 days, 1 night, and vlog that as we go around. But I also have plans for other stuff. I appreciate it's been quite theme park heavy recently, and Not That Media was created out of my love for 3 main sections, technically 4. The first is my love of theme parks. I do love a theme park. I will continue to do it. Being a Merlin pass holder enables me to go to all the UK attractions as and when I please, so I'll be hitting all of those ones. I'm a huge fan of horror movies, not just modern, all the way back to the classics from Nosferatu all the way up to The Strangers Chapter 1. I'm a lover of all things horror, and with that I'm a lover of all things physical media, so I have a significant collection of horror Blu-rays, if I do say so myself. I'm continually purchasing them, so if you're a fan of 4Ks, steelbooks, special editions, box sets, difference comparisons, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of stuff is coming. There's a little bit of it on the channel, but I have plans for quite a lot more. And the third area, or technically fourth area, will be the Whoniverse, as it's now referred to. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. My love of Doctor Who is second, or arguably by comparison only horror, is in the same field. I love theme parks, but Doctor Who and horror are my world when it comes to things like these. So I want to do a lot of content on not just the new series as and when it happens, but the classic series, the Wilderness Years, Big Finish, all those wonderful things that casual fans are probably missing out on. They don't necessarily want to sit and listen to hours and hours of audio, and that they are interested in finding out different things, like the time the 10th Doctor met the 4th, 5th and 6th Doctor and battled the Daleks, the Weeping Angels and the Cybermen with his earlier selves. Things like that people have no idea have happened. Maybe they just don't want to sit and listen to that. They're not a big fan of that kind of format. I want to go through those things with you guys. I've got quite the collection of Big Finish CDs, and I will be going through that. So if you're a fan of Doctor Who and Big Finish, if you're a fan of theme parks, if you're a fan of horror, if you're a fan of physical media, Not That Media is going to be the channel that will have you covered. So I really would ask you to subscribe at this point. If you have suggestions, if you have thoughts, if you have ideas, please do put them in the comments. You can follow me on Facebook at Not That Media. We do have a dedicated Facebook group, which is Not That Media. Look for the logo. It's the same logo as the YouTube channel. And as always, I really appreciate you watching this. And until next time, stay scared.